guys, welcome to Boys and Girls Club of Greater St. Louis. I am Mr. Lee. I hope you guys have been staying safe and healthy. Without further ado, I'm coming to you with a STEM video. The section will be in Unit 3 of the STEM binder, Food Chemistry. And the lesson is Breaking Tension, involving soda and Mentos. Stick around.
All right, so this might be the most important part of the entire project or any science project, the safety procedures. So you need to make sure that you listen carefully and follow the directions as stated. For this, you will need to wear safety glasses and protective clothing. Make sure if you have long hair that you tie it to the back. You need to follow the activity instructions carefully. Make sure you're paying attention. You need to listen carefully and communicate well with others. And up next we have the materials. Now that was a wild material list, kind of dramatic, but on to the scientific method. So today we're just going to use a condensed version. We're leaving off about 1 or 2 steps, and we're going to start with the hypothesis. And that is a well thought out explanation that you will then test. So for this one, my hypothesis will be to see if the name brand soda have a better reaction than the off brand soda. But if you do this experiment, your hypothesis might be different than mine. For the experiment, it is basically the action that you will test for your hypothesis. So it's the entire experiment and it's the action that you will test based on your hypothesis. Next we will collect the data, and that's the information that you'll get from observing your experiment. And then at the very end, like the hypothesis, the theory might be different for everybody, but it's a rational thought about the results of the experiment based on the data. So it's a rational thought about the results of the experiment based on the data. And we'll be coming back around to that one. So in this experiment, we'll have 3 different variables: the independent variable, the dependent, and the control. So with the independent variable, it can change or it can stay the same. So in this case, our independent variable will be the soda, which will change and also be controlled. So what would change is the different flavors and the brands. So the control part would be the amount of liquid, which would be 2 liters throughout. With the dependent variable, it is what we measure, and that measurement depends upon the independent variable. So in this case, our dependent variable will be the height of the geyser, and it will also be the length of the reaction. And the next thing we'll focus on will be the chart, and that'll be all about the dependent variable. We'll get to that after we speak about the controlled variable, which is the one thing that will stay unchanged. In this case, we have 2 things. The first thing is the Mentos. Other than being crushed, it will stay the same. And also the amount of liquid, which we mentioned in the independent variable, which is 2 liters So when you do this project, make sure that you're only using 2 liters bottles. You don't have to use 4 bottles, but I'll be using 4 bottles today. You can just use 1 or 2 to do this experiment, but make sure it stays the same. So you'll need a 2 liter bottle. As I mentioned before, this chart displays the two dependent variables and also the independent variable. So the independent variable in the situation is Sprite, Coca-Cola, a clear off brand, which would be similar to the flavor of Sprite, and then a dark off brand, which is similar to the flavor of Coca-Cola. Remember, all of these sodas will be 2 liters. The height of the geyser and the length of reaction is the dependent variable, which would depend upon these 4 sodas. Ah, yes. One step closer to the experiment. First, we'll have to do our step-by-step preparation. First thing first, you need to find a clear area to prepare the soda, and also that you know is safe, you need to get out of the way as soon as you start the experiment. That's when you put the Mentos in the soda. Also, with that, you'll need to take the top off well before you put the Mentos in, just to be ready. Um, with this space, you will want it maybe in front of a wall outside, where you can measure more easily, and you'll also be able to get out of the way quickly. Although we wearing safety goggles, we'll still need to get out of the way quickly. Also, with the measuring part, you'll need to have your markers handy and also your measuring tape. So for this step, you'll need to create a candy tube. You will make sure that one side is taped so that when you put the candy in, it doesn't fall out, so that you can flip the open side into the bottle. In this step, we'll be creating the candy tube, and that's basically a rolled up index card taped on the side and at one end to contain the candy. So this will make it much easier transferring the candy into the bottle beforehand, because the reaction will happen really fast and you'll have to drop all the candy in the bottle immediately. When you're doing this, please remember to get out the way. You might need to drop it um, soon after, but make sure you get out of the way as soon as you turn it over. All right, for this step, you'll have to really pay attention, because first I'm going to explain to you why we're using crushed Mentos over whole Mentos. With this, each regular Mentos has 2 surfaces. These surfaces have nucleation sites on them, and that basically translates to gas once you put it in the soda. In this case, we want more surfaces. So when we put it in a bottle, we have a more gas that will make it react better. For the crushed Mentos, it has about 3 to 5 surfaces, so it'll be much better to use in the experiment. Before you crush them, you'll have to divide them. In this case, we're going to use 10 pieces of Mentos per bottle, and that's a whole Mentos before you break it. After you divide them, you'll need to wrap them in wax paper and then crush them with a hammer or a book. Make sure you are being safe. You're not overexerting yourself when you're crushing them, because it can make a mess and it can also be a safety issue. Um, and then after you do that, then you'll put it into the candy tube and then do your experiment one at a time though. You might need to make 4 different tubes as well, because the tubes might get wet. Now, wasn't that exciting? So, for this next part and throughout the whole experiment, you need a camera so that you can go back and measure the length of the reaction and the height of the geyser, because you'll have to collect this data in your notebook. So make sure you have a camera, and also make sure you're not the one holding the camera. You're going to need more than one person for this experiment. So you will more than likely be executing the experiment, adding the Mentos into the soda, and then that person can record so that you can go back and measure everything accurately. In any case, both participants need to stay safe. Here's our data chart all filled out. So now we should have all our data in. For this, my data was the Sprite had a 10-inch geyser and the reaction time was 11 seconds. With the Coca-Cola, it had an 8-inch geyser with a reaction time of 14 seconds. The white off-brand soda, it had a height of 4 inches and a reaction time of 16 seconds. And with the dark off-brand, it was 2 inches and had a reaction time of around 20 seconds. Make sure we are looking at the numbers closely, because this is going to help when we come up with our theory. We'll need to look at the experiment, look at the data, and then kind of formulate an idea for the theory. We have made it to our theory in the end of our experiment. Um, Looking back at the hypothesis and the theory, remember they can be different than mine depending upon what you do with your project. You can use different kinds of sodas, a different amount of sodas than I did. You can use one, you can use two or three, or as many as you want. It will change the theory, so it will not match mine necessarily depending on how you execute your project. Um, And with that, my theory is name brand sodas had a higher geyser because they contained stronger carbonation within the bottle, thus creating a better force once the Mentos was introduced to the soda, resulting in more gas being released. And that was evident in the video because the name brand sodas did much, much better. Um, if you pay attention to the bottle and everything, you can see everything happening within, and it's happening very quickly. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Um, for me, the experiment was very fun. If you have any questions, you can just check on the Facebook page. I'll be there until the end of the video. And also, please pause when you need to. There's no rush in the video, so just pause when you need to so that you can have a great understanding of the experiment. I hope you guys have fun with it.
Thank you guys for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed. If you like this video, you can watch other virtual videos on Facebook, or you can go to bgcscl.org, or you can watch on Twitter, Instagram, and also we're doing TikTok videos. Next week we're starting tutoring, so please join. It'll be on Zoom. Thank you for watching.